Hey, this is Reviews and Other Stuff, and today I'll be reviewing Elvis, a 2022 biopic film directed by Baz Luhrmann, and stars Austin Butler and Tom Hanks in the main roles. As always, I'll be illustrating my reviews, and all the artwork is done by myself. Now, when I first saw the trailer drop, I wasn't exactly bouncing off the walls to watch it. However, when I found out who the director was, that's when everything changed, and I mean everything. I knew I was going to watch it, I had to. If anyone is familiar with any of his prior films, then you'll know his very distinctive style and flair. Now, I know of Elvis, but I don't really know much about him career-wise. I always seem to discover him when I hear a song I like and I find out it's a remake of one of his original songs. And I think the first time I really knew about Elvis was from watching a rerun episode of Married with Children, the sitcom. And Peggy Bundy accidentally bumps into an Elvis lookalike and she says, "I met the king, the pelvis." And that was always memorable to me. Now, I'm a huge fan of biopic films, even though most of them don't have happy endings. This film is your standard biopic film as it captures tidbits and insight into his life as a kid, a teen, an adult, and ultimately him as the entertainer known as the king of rock and roll. It follows those traditional beats of rise, and untimely demise. Also important to keep in mind it's a film, so I'm sure many elements were amped up for dramatic flair and entertainment purposes. Also, this review does contain spoilers. Unlike his other films, it starts and everything is moving at a rather quick pace, and the director does interesting things with camera work, camera movement, interesting angles and colors, and all of his visual flares are splashed throughout the film, like his DNA is everywhere, and it's what we've come to know and love from him. The story is told through the perspective of Elvis's manager, Colonel Parker. We find out that he works at the circus and hears a song being played and is immediately struck by the distinctive voice, but says it won't really go anywhere since it's an R&B singer. Then he finds out the artist is white, and immediately the bells, the ideas go off in his head, the red flags. I mean, he goes out to find the singer and is determined to sign and manage him. What I found interesting is the film takes this time, almost about 15 minutes into the film, before we actually see Elvis's entire face. And I thought that was an interesting choice by the director to have him in the film before the actual face reveal happens. Like only his back and side profile views are shown. So we, the audience, don't get an actual look at his face till he's ready to perform. And I like that he did that. It's almost like we're part of the crowd that's in that scene waiting to see him perform for the first time. Now, we get some insights into his life and how he wanted to become an entertainer and have his family be financially stable. We see he's a fan of R&B music and some of the things that inspire him. We also learn he wants to be a serious actor and mentions wanting to be like James Dean. And I like all these little small character development points sprinkled here and there to help establish him as a person. It gives a small window into the man behind the microphone. In the second half of the film, it mostly focuses on his rise in the acting world, but it's told through montage scenes, so we never really get to see him prepare for a film, like reading a script, trying to memorize his lines, or on set filming any of his films. And I felt like this was a missed opportunity. Now, in the third act of the film, it focuses heavily on his preparation for his Las Vegas residency. But before actually agreeing to do it, he is preparing to fire his manager. But then Parker brings up how lucrative the residency will be, and so he ends up agreeing to do it. At this point, it's revealed Parker is a hardcore gambler and has a serious addiction problem and owes tons of money. So he makes a deal with the hotel manager to clear his debt if he can get Elvis to perform here several weeks every year. However, we find out early on that Elvis and his manager have a horrible contract which entitles him to 50% of all of his earnings. Now, we all know managers don't get 50%, but I think this shows how Elvis was taken advantage of because he was so young, and in an effort to pursue his dreams, he literally ended up making a deal with the devil. The second and third act of the film is also where it sort of loses steam because the first part is really stylized, very fast paced and energetic, but he obviously can't keep recycling those signature beats in the second and third act of the film. So it's during the last two acts where the scenes really get room to breathe and they're more fleshed out, and it just takes its time. The momentum comes to a calm. Even though it loses its steam and slows down a bit, I was never bored. I never once looked at my watch and said, "God, I wish this would end. Someone please save me." It's entertaining through and through. If there was another hour of the film after it ended, I would have happily stayed and watched. It's that good. And in the third act is also where everything starts to crumble. His wife, Priscilla's in the film, played by Olivia Dijon. I'm not sure I'm not familiar with this actress, but I thought she did an amazing job with the limited amount of scenes and dialogue that she has. Her presence in the film was so interesting that I wish she got more screen time and more things to do. She kind of just shows up for work and isn't given much to do. And it's nothing against the director or the actress, but I feel she wasn't as fully fleshed out as she could have been. In the final act, Elvis fires his manager only to discover he's been cheated financially for years. And Parker's shady past is slightly revealed as well, and we find out he wasn't born in the US and he assumed another identity. We also discover that Parker doesn't have a passport, and that's why he never lets Elvis perform outside of the US internationally, even though he gets tons of offers. It's also during the final year of his residency where Elvis is increasingly becoming more and more dependent on his drugs, and you really see him struggling with his inner demons and falling into the depths of despair. And at this point, he has gained a little bit of weight, and the film jumps ahead to his final year, where he's in discussions to play the male lead in the remake of A Star is Born. He ends up losing the role, and it's during this time where he's made fun of for his weight gain. And it was really sad. So, this pretty much brings us to the end, where he eventually passes away at the young age of 42 due to drug use. Now, onto my pros and cons of the film. Now, the first con is I didn't really have that many issues with the film. One of the criticisms I had is that I wish it was longer to really flesh out Elvis and some of the side characters. Like, we have Priscilla in the film, but as noted, she doesn't get much to do. The real life person has a unique image and style with crazy eyelashes. Like, do something, explore it. Now, I know it's not her fault given the runtime is limited, but I would have loved to seen a director's cut of the film. I mean, if there's a 4 to 5 hour cut, like please release it on Blu-ray. I need to see it. I can just imagine all of the juicy stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor. I also wish we didn't get those montage scenes because it would have been great if his time in Hollywood had dedicated scenes. So the character development and growth is a bit on the light side. Even though this is a biopic, I never got a sense that I really got to know Elvis as a person. I never got a sense I knew him as a person or what he was thinking because it's not verbally expressed. We see bad things happen to him and some of the struggles he goes through, but it just wasn't enough. There was never that emotional connection there, and when the emotional scenes happen in the film to really make the audience cry, it doesn't achieve its job. I did get a bit choked up, but there just wasn't enough to make me get emotional. And the same goes with the 2019 live action remake of Dumbo from director Tim Burton. I mean, when Dumbo's looking for his mom and she's locked up and he finds her, she lets her trunk down and they touch. But that is one of those big pivotal moment scenes to make you cry, and it just doesn't happen. Either the director couldn't make it happen, or because Dumbo was a CGI character. And when the audience knows a character in the film isn't physically tangible, there's going to be a disconnect. Now, onto my pros. I wasn't aware of Austin Butler prior to this film. After seeing this, I'm sure he'll become a huge household name. Like, this is a superstar making vehicle that only comes probably once every decade. His performance in the film is amazing. I never once got a sense that he was doing an imitation or an impersonation of Elvis. Like, he truly sinks into the role, and I think it shows his versatility as an actor that he's able to do so. He's a good looking guy and he captures the swagger of Elvis very well. He has stage presence when he's performing, and I also thought he did a great job with the musical performances. Like during his Vegas residency, I felt like I was watching a live recorded concert before my very eyes. He's that good. He's also excellent when it comes to the emotional scenes. For instance, there's a scene at the airport in the car with Priscilla, and he doesn't say much but captures how much pain he is in and his facial expressions alone, and just by sitting in the car. I thought it was very well done. You could feel he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. You feel he's tormented and you feel the burden just bringing him down into this black hole of despair just by sitting in the car and he's not even speaking. Also, I have no idea what they did, but they do a great job of making him look older. Not sure if it's makeup, prosthetics, or if the actor gained actual weight for the second and third act of the film, but as soon as he goes to Hollywood, he already starts to look different and more mature, and you see him turn into his 30s and 40s right before your eyes. So I was sitting there saying to myself, wow. And I also just love how they gave him fake long eyelashes to wear and tons of mascara all over to make him look like the king. Like, I thought that was interesting. Now with Tom Hanks, I'm not sure this is a pro or a con. Like, he's an exceptional actor and one of the greatest actors of our generation, but This is where I felt I was kind of taken out of the film because he's made to look a certain way and it comes off as if he's doing a cliche of a typical villain. Like he's doing some accent. What accent? I have no idea. Though it's not a horrible performance, at times I felt like it took me out of the movie experience. Um, I also think the film serves as a good cautionary tale about being aware of the trap falls involved with becoming famous. The film does a good job of portraying the downfalls of being a celebrity from both angles. Ultimately, it was a dual effort for Parker and Elvis, and I think when you are so handsome like him, you just end up attracting unwanted evil that brings nothing but harm. I can't even imagine what it would be like to grow up and be that good looking and talented and constantly have people want to take advantage of you. And sometimes they just want to be around you and admire your beauty, but at the same time, someone does get taken advantage of. It's also important to just check your checking account every day and stay on top of your finances. I mean, if there are more outflows than inflows, that should raise a red flag. Like, you don't wait till your manager gives you a past due bill of $8 million before you wake up and smell the coffee beans. I mean, there's no reason why towards the end of the film he owes Parker any money. Absolutely none whatsoever. Lastly, this is a Bass film through and through. It has his signature stamp all over. He did what he wanted off his checklist. And if you told him you cried in this film, I think he would be in utter shock. He'd probably ask, "Wow, I did that for you?" So he checked all the boxes on his checklist, but emotional connection and tears was not one of them. It would surprise himself if that happened, and it would be the ribbon on top of the cake if he made a film where the audience was entertained and felt something emotional at the same time. During the final scenes of the film where he dies, and when he's at the airport with Priscilla and he whispers, I'll always love you, I did get a bit choked up, but not enough to bring me there. However, when I saw the music video for the remake of his song Can't Help Falling in Love by Casey Musgraves, I ended up getting emotional. Like, I found that song, her voice, and the film, the footage that they used, to be compelling. It was the right mixture and I felt moved, whereas the film got me close, but not all the way. But it's understandable because how do you cram an entire life into a film that's close to 3 hours? With all that being said, I highly recommend this film because you'll be entertained and it's that good. The ride might not have been that exciting had it been a different director, but Baz really was able to fuse something old with something new. He made it very stylish and entertaining. It was candy for the eyes. So my score is a solid 8 out of 10 with good performances and a film that has very few moments where something interesting isn't going on. I hope you enjoyed my review. If you like, please subscribe. Helps the channel out a lot. I try to make a video once a week if I can. Thanks so much, and thanks for checking out my review. Hope you enjoyed it, and leave your comments below on whether you liked the film or not.